The great loss of this sale. Poor things. Willkommen, bienvenue. Welcome once again to another live stream. As the keener eyed amongst you will notice, David Chernick in the virtual studio, and Gareth Wax, the man with many purple hats. And today we are talking about loss. I feel I should bow my head and talk about the loss, the great loss of a sale. And the fact you put in all that effort, you put that time, you think you're there, you've had great chats, you've taken them out for a meal, you've been out for a drink, you've slapped each other on the back, you've played a round of golf.
Even shaking hands on something.
And you think you've got it in the bag. You've been saying to your sales manager, oh, don't worry about that one. It's going to come in at the end of the month.
No, salespeople don't say that, but yeah. Any salesperson with any experience.
Yeah. Well, it's, or you look at your forecast sheet and you're working out where to score each of your opportunities. And you're scoring them, say, 1 to 5, and you see this one, oh, that's a solid 4 out of 5. It's definitely falling in. That was the one. I know that because only a week ago, he was telling me what a fine figure of a man I am. And then crickets.
Well, it's kind of 4 out of 5, or sort of 80%, or as the CRM systems say, you know, maybe even 90% when you're waiting for the signed contract. It will say like 90%. Which technically, according to CRM systems, mean that 90% of the deals that get to that stage convert into actual paying clients. And the reality is that very rarely do they. You know, in business services, you might be talking about a 1 in 3 conversion rate from people who say they are going to buy it to people who do actually buy it in that estimated order date and with that estimated order value. Okay, so just to bear that in mind. But going back to the question, I mean, it's a funny thing to call it a loss, a deal, a loss, when it was never actually yours yet. Yeah, it wasn't actually in the bag. But we call it loss because we feel like we have lost some sort of competition or battle, right? And of course, it is a bit of a competition to win it, but it's not a deal that you have ever had, usually, unless you're talking about a renewal, in which case, really, it is a client loss.
Right.
There are 2 sort of aspects to losing a deal, because anybody who hasn't lost a deal, if they're not really salespeople, you need to have had a loss in order to be, in my mind, considered a sales professional.
And not only that, but you need to be. I find a lot of sales professionals, especially if they perceive the loss as being a large one, you know, something they've been working on for months, and then it all falls apart. They need to have been able to get past it, to it be in their rearview mirror, not living with it on a day-by-day basis. A lot of salespeople that I come across who have lost that big deal still almost have it as a hood ornament with them at all times, and they need to get to the back where yeah, sure, the dead bodies are in the back, but I'm not looking at them all the time. You know?
So there are 2 elements to this. There's one is the element of how do you actually cope with it, how do you live with it. But then I suppose being a sales professional, there's always part of me that thinks, even though I've lost on that occasion, I could still win them back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to deal with those 2 things. And I do get quite a lot of inquiries from people at the moment when they have received or they're anticipating an imminent rejection for something they pitched for, and they want to know what they could do to try and rescue the opportunity. So I thought I'd go into that as well, because there is something that you can do. In fact, there's a few things you can do to try and rescue it to various degrees. And I'll come to that in a moment. But the first element, which is the emotional and psychological impact of experiencing a loss, can lead on to some further noxious behaviors or negative behaviors. And it stems from the fact that, you know, you've taken a hit, you've invested time and effort and money perhaps on trying to win something. You've invested in the growth of your business, culminating in pitching for this particular deal. There's going to be some sort of affirmation as to your prowess as a business person or as a service provider for whatever services you're selling. And then they're going to say no to you, rejection. And so really what we're feeling is feelings of rejection. And we better get used to it. Because if I'm right about the 1 in 3 typical conversion rate in business services, you're going to get more rejection than you're going to get deals.
Oh, by a long way. And I think you need to, how should I put this? You almost need to see it as 1 in 20 or even worse. 1 in 20 of the ones that you think may turn into a deal will actually guaranteed to turn into a deal, and you won't necessarily know which one of those they are, because often they'll present very similarly. You know, that there are so many, what people don't realize is there's so many factors that are going on in their lives personally, for instance, or even other aspects of the business that you're not privy to, that you've got no idea what can change a sale on a sixpence, literally it overnight.
Well, I mean, you know, you can, there's an enormous amount you can do to improve your odds of winning, but by the time you've come to the close and you've heard the rejection no, then that is the point of regret almost for a lot of people. Like, what did I not do? What did I miss? You know, and then they pick up the phone to me and I say, well, let's have a look at what you've done. Okay, well, you know, you've missed out a considerable amount of stuff to get to this point. And if we were to predict yesterday what their answer would be today, it would be a no-brainer, mate. You know, it would be, you'd have a 1 in 20 chance of winning this. All right. And you might be gutted to hear that. And if you'd come to me yesterday, maybe there's something that we could have done. But don't worry, the fact that it's too late now, there's still things that you can do. And I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is to try and rescue the deal at that moment. Yeah. When somebody says no, they mean no. So we have to be very wary of acting with consent. Yeah. And so we need to start off by asking for consent. And it would go something along the lines of, you know, acknowledging their voice that I hear you, you have said no, you're going to stick with your current provider or you're going to decided to go with somebody else. You know, you're obviously not normalize it. You're obviously not the first person who's ever said no to us. And those people who actually gave us an opportunity for a very quick feedback conversation afterwards felt very pleased that they had done. And some of them ended up becoming our clients anyway, and are very happy to this day. Have you got 20 minutes after the time we've spent together just to give me some feedback? Yeah. And during those 20 minutes, if they agree to do it, and most will give you that time, knowing that you've invested your effort. 20 minutes is a magic number as well. And so during that 20-minute call, we can do something like requalification. Yeah. If you and I were ever to do business again, yeah, or if you and I were ever to do business in the future, when would that be? Yeah. I mean, could I come back to you next year, in a month? Do you want me to check in, see if this new provider's any, I mean, you know, whatever it might be, just give me a time frame. Secondly, if you were to have gone with us as you are going to go with them, how much did this contract actually work out for you? You know, and get a number, then you get an estimated order value. Yeah. And actually, I know that you've not gone with us, you've gone with somebody else, but what specifically are you getting from them? Yeah. Including any perceived unique selling points, and write those things down. You've got something. And then we can, again, after that 20-minute phone call, during that 20-minute phone call, assuming we've got those 3 qualification criteria, say, you know, you can offer, look, I don't know what it was that we missed or what they did better in their pitch. If you can tell me that, and you'd be open to me if we had that thing, which I don't know if we do, are you open to changing your mind now? A very direct question. Yeah, yes or no. And if it's no, that's cool. Because you have gone armed then with a date when they're next pitching, you've the amount it's worth and what they're getting, and crucially, you've left the relationship intact.
Right.
Okay, so that is what you could do to try and rescue a loss. The other thing that you can do when trying to rescue a loss is the opposite, which is to get all upset about it, phone them up, have an argument with them, or something like that, right? It's like going to be one of those two things, effectively, or just keep quiet about it and never say anything, which I don't recommend. You know,
which is what the majority of people do, I think.
They go off in the soul.
Yeah.
But we have to recognize we have those feelings of loss. You know, I mean, I remember in my teenagerhood how much rejection I got, not necessarily from deals, but you know, and you feel it, you take it personally. You know, we know people buy from people, so when they say no, it's me they're saying no to. Yeah, I get it. We have to be able to learn to live with that, and become resilient. And there's all sorts of different things that can help with resilience. Anyway, so those are really the two things: dealing with the feeling of the loss and what to do to try and recover the sale. Now, I did say there was a second thing to do, okay, in order to alleviate the pain of this, and that is to get knowledgeable about what your conversion rates are. Yeah, I've said that a standard in typical amount in business services is a 1 in 3 conversion rate. You might have a 1 in 5 conversion rate, right? Or you might have a 1 in 1.5 conversion rate. And those things will tell you something. For example, if you are used to trying to close 75% of everything you're quoting for, and then you lose one, that's going to be an indicator that there's not enough in your pipeline.
Right. Exactly.
So to overcome that feeling of loss from a deal is a very healthy thing to do, to build your pipeline. Use that as an opportunity to build your pipeline. Yeah, to make a resolution that you are going to have a bigger pipeline, and you're going to add it up the pipeline so that when you then divide it by 3 for your 1 in 3, the output in terms of one clients will be satisfactory to you. Yeah, so that can be a way of overcoming it. And those, you know, really are the two things to do: to recover the sale, to try and recover the sale, not always possible, and to make a resolution about dealing with your pipeline properly.
It's just hard, though. It's very hard, especially when you're younger and you're full of vim and vigor, and you let's say you've got your first 2 or 3 deals under your belt, and then you start working on this one. You think this is going to be the one. This is the one that's really going to break me through. And you work on it for, like, say, 2 or 3 months, and you've had meetings, you've given presentations, you've built a rapport with your opposite number there.
I do agree. I just want to jump in very, very gently, if that's okay. But younger, I wouldn't necessarily say younger. I would say it's experience.
Inexperienced is a better word. Inexperienced. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that without that thick skin of leather that you develop to cover yourself against,
it's calluses, man. It's calluses.
Without that, it can really knock your confidence. I remember once I'd come across something which I perceived as a loophole. We'd pull stuff together, which allowed us to get on a government list. And we were never providers at that level, but we were getting on a government list. And I'd done that, and the hope and the dreams of the company in some small way was on my shoulders to get this, because this deal would be worth 30, 40, 50,000 a year, come rain or come shine. And we got past I can't speak, past the first round, and then past the second round, and then the third round was beckoning, and then suddenly, just out the blue, it said, we've decided that you're no longer suitable for us. Thank you for your efforts. Goodbye. And it was like, I remember I came into that email, and it was just like that.
Did you cry?
Yeah, I recontacted them and said, you know, will there be another round that we can play a part in, as you demonstrated that we are compliant in every other way, and I got no response for 6 months. Then out the blue, they came back and said, if you want to try again, you can try next year. And I think that I left that company short a few months later and never went through it all again. But yeah, I just remember the feeling of personal loss from that, and it took me about a month to properly recover from it.
Yeah.
But nowadays, hopefully that doesn't happen to me very often. But if it does, I think I'd be a little bit more resilient.
It helps to have a script with you for requalification of lost sales. It helps. Yeah. I mean,
But remember, but I would say that if we can just finish on this note, requalification of an existing relationship that you've built up over time, especially if that relationship was good, if there was some, some sort of, if you were vibing with those people, that can be a lot easier than foraging for brand new business.
Absolutely. And actually, the relationship doesn't need to be that good. You've got a shoe in, you have had some dealings with them. Next time around, it'll be, yo, it's me again from last time. There's something there. So anyway.
So on that note, I just wanted to thank you, David Chernick, for helping us deal with that terrible loss. And I myself, Gareth from the Many Purple Hats, wishing you all a successful week. And of course, keep your feet on the ground, but keep reaching for the stars and look after that mental health. Bye-bye.